Welcome to Daily English Stories. Every story hides a world. Some inspire, some haunt, some stay forever. Chapter 1. The Easy Way Out. Evan had always believed that life was meant to be easy. At 17, he had mastered the art of doing just enough. At school, he never really studied, just skimmed his notes the night before an exam, copying homework from friends on the bus ride in the morning. When teachers praised him for passing, he smiled, never admitting that most of it was luck. At home, it was the same. Chores. He did them half-heartedly, sweeping only the spots that were visible, leaving the corners dusty. When his mother asked if he'd finished his assignments, he nodded with a confident grin, even if the pages were mostly blank. Evan's friends often called him clever. "You always find the easy way, man." One of them laughed as they watched him slip out of football practice early. "Why work so hard when you can get by doing less?" And Evan believed it. Why struggle when comfort was within reach? Every day felt simple. He had time to scroll through his phone for hours, to sleep late, to play games until midnight. When things went wrong, he had an excuse ready. The teacher didn't explain well. The test was unfair. Who cares about chores, anyway? But slowly, small cracks began to show. Ones Evan chose to ignore. His test scores were dropping. He noticed teachers stopped praising him and started warning him instead. "You have potential, Evan," one said with a sigh. "But you're not using it." He brushed it off. Potential didn't matter. Results did. And so far, he was getting by. At football practice, he sat on the bench more often than playing. His coach stopped asking him to join important matches. "You need to train harder," the coach told him one day. But Evan only shrugged. Why bother when there was always next time? One evening, as he scrolled through social media, Evan saw his classmates posting achievements, trophies from competitions, certificates from extra classes, glowing smiles after hard-earned victories. For a brief moment, something in his chest tightened. They must be so lucky, he thought. They probably didn't have to work that hard. He quickly closed the app, distracting himself with another game, pushing the thought away. Days turned into weeks, and the pattern stayed the same. Easy choices, quick fixes, no effort beyond what was necessary. Yet beneath his confident surface, a subtle unease was growing. Every time he avoided a challenge, a quiet voice inside whispered, "You're falling behind." But Evan didn't listen. Not yet. Instead, he told himself the same thing he always did. Life was supposed to be easy, and somehow everything would work out on its own. What he didn't know was that life had already started preparing a lesson for him. A lesson that would shake his beliefs and show him that nothing worth having comes without hard work. Chapter 2. The Struggle Begins. It happened on a Wednesday morning. Evan had barely slept the night before, wasting hours on his phone as usual. He walked into school half awake, expecting another ordinary day, until his homeroom teacher made an announcement. "Next week," she said, her voice carrying over the chatter of the class, "there will be an inter-school science quiz. We need 2 students to represent our class. The preliminary test will be today." The room buzzed with excitement. Some students immediately opened their books, revising formulas and facts. Evan leaned back in his chair, smirking. "A quiz? That's easy. I've gotten by without studying before. This should be no different." By noon they handed out the papers. Evan skimmed through the questions. His confidence faltered. He didn't recognize half the terms on the page. His mind raced, trying to recall lessons he barely listened to. He guessed at answers, scribbled randomly, hoping luck would save him like it always had. When the results were announced later that afternoon, his stomach sank. He hadn't just failed, he had the lowest score in the class. "Evan," the teacher said, holding his paper gently, "I know you're smart, but you didn't even try, did you?" The words stung. He forced a laugh. "Guess it wasn't my day." But inside, his chest tightened. For the first time, his easy way out hadn't worked. There was no shortcut, no quick fix, no friend to copy from. As he walked home, the usual comfort of laziness felt hollow. He watched a group of students practicing outside, a boy repeating math problems aloud, a girl jotting notes as her friends quizzed her. Their faces were tired, but determined. That night, Evan lay awake, staring at the ceiling. His thoughts were louder than ever. Maybe they're not lucky. Maybe they work harder than I ever have. Maybe that's why they win. He felt frustrated, angry at the test, at himself, at the fact that his old habits were finally catching up to him. He replayed the teacher's words over and over. "You didn't even try, did you?" The next morning, as he sat at his desk, he opened his science book for the first time in weeks. The pages looked strange, crowded with diagrams and terms he barely understood. After 5 minutes, his head ached. He wanted to close the book and grab his phone, but something stopped him. A memory of the quiz paper, blank and disappointing, flashed in his mind. For the first time, he admitted the truth to himself. "I've been lazy. I've been running from effort, and it's not working anymore." Evan sighed, pressing his fingers against his temple. He didn't know where to start, but he knew one thing. If he wanted things to change, he had to try, really try. That day, after school, he stayed back in the library. He asked a classmate for help, swallowing his pride. He wrote down notes, forcing himself to focus even when it felt uncomfortable. His hand cramped from writing, his mind tired from thinking. But when he walked home that evening, there was a tiny flicker of something new in his chest: determination. It wasn't much. It wasn't enough to erase his old habits overnight. But it was a beginning, the first step toward learning a lesson he had never forget. Nothing great comes without hard work. Chapter 3. The Reward of Effort. The days that followed were not easy for Evan. Waking up early felt like a battle. His body resisted, craving the comfort of those extra hours in bed. But he forced himself up, bleary-eyed, and opened his books while the rest of the house still slept. At first the words blurred together, and frustration bubbled up. Yet he reminded himself of that quiz paper, of the sting of failure, and kept going. Slowly his routine began to change. Instead of rushing through homework during lunch breaks, he started finishing it the night before, carefully, patiently. Instead of skipping football practice, he stayed until the coach blew the final whistle, sweating through every drill. His friends teased him at first. "Since when do you care so much?" they laughed. Evan smiled shyly. "Since I got tired of doing nothing." Each evening, he sat at the desk in his small room, the pages of his books filling with neat notes and highlighted ideas. At first, progress was slow, but one night, as he solved a problem on his own for the first time, a surge of pride rushed through him. It wasn't luck. It wasn't someone else's answer. It was his effort, his work, that brought him there. Weeks passed, and that small flicker of determination grew stronger. His teachers noticed. "You've improved," one said, handing back a graded paper with a proud smile. His coach noticed too. "You've got energy now, Evan. Keep this up." One afternoon, another announcement came. A second round of inter-school tests. Evan's heart raced, but this time he didn't feel the old fear. He felt ready, or at least ready to try his very best. He studied hard, practiced every day, and walked into that test with a new mindset. Hours later, as the results were read aloud, Evan's name came up among the top scorers. The class clapped, and for a moment he couldn't move. He just sat there, a smile slowly spreading across his face. It wasn't just the score. It was what it represented. The late nights, the early mornings, the times he wanted to quit, but didn't. He thought about how far he'd come from the boy who had believed in shortcuts. And in that moment, the real reward wasn't the certificate he would take home. It was the person he had become along the way. On his way back that day, the streets looked brighter. He felt lighter. He knew he still had a long way to go, but he also knew something far more important. Effort mattered. Hard work changed things, inside and out. That evening, when his mother asked about his day, Evan didn't shrug or make a joke. He simply said with quiet pride, "It was a good day. I earned it." And as he sat by his window later, watching the sun sink into the horizon, he smiled to himself. Hard work wasn't just about winning. It was about growing, learning, and knowing that every step, every effort, was shaping him into someone better.